Hello, sweetheart. The greatest enemy of discipline does not come from the outside world, but from within. It is not the critics, nor the failures, nor the weight of responsibility that destroys people's ability to stay consistent. It is comfort. Comfort is seductive. It whispers that you deserve to rest before the work is done, that you should take it easy today because tomorrow will always be there. It lulls you into a soft bed of excuses, and before you know it, days have slipped into months and months into years. The dreams you once carried with fire in your heart dissolve quietly, not because you were incapable, but because you chose ease over effort, pleasure over progress. Comfort feels harmless at first. A few extra minutes in bed, another evening wasted scrolling through distractions, a skipped workout, a postponed project. The danger is not in one moment of rest, but in the pattern it creates. Every time you choose comfort over discipline, you strengthen the weaker part of yourself. You tell your mind, I obey my cravings. You give permission for laziness to take root, and over time, comfort, disguised as kindness to yourself, robs you of the very life you were supposed to live. The reason we must force ourselves to be disciplined is because comfort rarely gives anything back. Think of the most rewarding moments of your life. They never came from doing what was easy. They came from struggle, from the nights you stayed up working when you wanted to quit, from the mornings you rose before the sun to chase something greater than sleep. They came from the battles you fought against yourself and won. Comfort has never been the author of growth. It has only ever written stories of regret. When you recognize this illusion, you begin to see comfort as a cage. It keeps you safe, but only in the way a prison cell keeps you safe. No danger enters, but no life is lived. And the bars of this cage are built by your own choices. Each time you avoid effort, you add another bar. Each time you surrender to distraction, the walls close in tighter. Freedom, true freedom, lies in the opposite direction. It comes when you push against resistance, when you refuse the easy path, when you deliberately step into discomfort until it becomes natural. To break this illusion, you must first confront the truth. Discipline is painful. There is no softening of this fact. Waking up early when your body screams for more sleep hurts. Saying no to indulgences when everyone else says yes is uncomfortable. Sitting down to work when your mind begs for entertainment is exhausting. But pain is not the enemy here. It is the signal that growth is taking place. Just as a muscle tears before it grows stronger, your willpower must strain before it becomes unbreakable. Without that discomfort, there is no transformation. This is why forcing yourself is necessary. Waiting to feel motivated is a trap. Motivation comes and goes like the wind, unreliable and fleeting. If you rely on it, you will move only when the breeze is in your favor, and you will remain stagnant when it is not. Discipline is the anchor that holds you steady when motivation disappears. To force yourself is to act without permission from your feelings, to move forward even when every fiber of your being resists. And in that very act, you reclaim power over yourself. Look at those who have achieved greatness in any field. Artists, athletes, leaders, thinkers. None of them were guided solely by inspiration. They were guided by relentless commitment. They forced themselves through the days of exhaustion, through the boredom, through the doubt. What separates them is not talent, but the ability to reject the comfort that most people surrender to. That is what discipline really is. The decision, repeated daily, to value your future more than your present desire for ease. And here lies the paradox. The more you step away from comfort, the more alive you feel. The very thing you resist at first, the early morning, the difficult task, the repeated practice, becomes the source of strength, clarity, and confidence. Comfort promised you happiness, but delivered emptiness. Discipline demanded pain, but delivered fulfillment. This is the irony of life. The harder road leads to freedom, while the easy road leads to chains. When you find yourself drawn to comfort, pause and ask, what will this choice cost me? Not just today, but in the years to come. Will it build me or will it weaken me? Will my future self thank me or resent me? These are not small questions. They are the very questions that shape the direction of your existence. For the life you dream of will not arrive by accident. It will arrive by force, by the discipline you choose when comfort tempts you the most. To force yourself is to declare war on the illusion of comfort. It is to remind yourself over and over that comfort is cheap, but the price of greatness is dear. And the moment you break free from its grip, even once, you taste something far greater than pleasure. You taste freedom. And once you have tasted that freedom, you will never again settle for the false sweetness of comfort. Discipline is often misunderstood. People hear the word and immediately think of punishment, restriction, or denial, as if to be disciplined is to live a life stripped of joy. But this is not discipline. That is merely control imposed from the outside. Real discipline is not about chains, but about liberation. It is not about being less of yourself, but more. It is the act of choosing a higher version of your life over the immediate cravings of the moment. Discipline is the purest form of self-respect because it says, I am worth more than the impulses that try to control me. What happens when you live without discipline? You become a slave, not to a master, but to your own desires. The urge for comfort, the craving for distraction, the need for instant gratification, they dictate your days. You say yes to laziness, yes to indulgence, yes to the easy road, and no to your true potential. Without discipline, you may appear free, but in truth, you are shackled to your own weaknesses. Your life becomes reactive, instead of directed, guided by fleeting moods instead of conscious choice. Discipline, then, is the opposite of slavery. It is the art of reclaiming yourself from the grip of impulses. When you decide to wake up earlier than your mind wants, when you choose to stay focused rather than wander, when you withhold indulgence in favor of progress, you are not depriving yourself. You are freeing yourself. You are proving that you are not at the mercy of urges, but rather the master of them. And in that moment, you stand taller, breathe deeper, and feel a quiet strength that no comfort could ever provide. Think of the individual who practices an instrument daily, who trains their body even when sore, who writes even when uninspired. To the outside world, it may look like sacrifice. To them, it feels like power, because every act of discipline is a declaration. I control my direction. It transforms struggle into purpose. It turns time into progress. And it transforms a wandering life into a life of creation. There is a hidden joy in discipline, though most never discover it. At first, it feels heavy, the alarm ringing too early, the practice demanding too much, the work stretching too long. But over time, the very things that once felt like chains become wings. You begin to see that the discomfort is not permanent. It is simply the toll you pay at the gates of transformation. And what you gain on the other side is far greater than what you gave up. The body becomes stronger, the mind sharper, the spirit more resilient. The small moments of forced effort add up until one day, without realizing it, you are no longer forcing yourself. You are simply living in alignment with your higher self. This is why discipline must be seen as liberation. Imagine a river with no banks. The water spills everywhere, unfocused, wasted. But when banks are formed, the river flows with power, carving valleys, moving mountains, generating energy. Discipline is the banks of your life. Without it, your energy disperses into distractions, leaving nothing behind. With it, you channel yourself into purpose, and your life begins to carve meaning into the world. The paradox is that people resist discipline because they think it limits their freedom. They want to do what they feel like whenever they feel like it. But this kind of freedom is hollow. It is the freedom of a leaf blown aimlessly in the wind, at the mercy of forces outside its control. True freedom is the freedom to choose your path, to build your life consciously rather than drift. And that freedom can only come through discipline. When you can command yourself to act even against resistance, you gain a power that no one can take from you. This is why forcing yourself to be disciplined is an act of love for your future self. It is standing guard at the gates of your destiny and refusing to let laziness, fear, or indulgence steal it from you. Every time you choose discipline, you place another brick on the road toward the life you envision. And though the path may be long and steep, every step you take makes you stronger, every sacrifice refines you, and every act of discipline liberates you from the chains of mediocrity. When you hear the word discipline, do not think of denial, but of respect. Do not think of loss, but of gain. For discipline is not a punishment imposed on you. It is a gift you give to yourself. It is the highest form of freedom because it frees you from being controlled by the weakest parts of your nature. It frees you from regret, from wasted potential, from the quiet suffering of knowing you could have been more. And in that freedom lies the truest joy of living. Every day, whether you realize it or not, there is a silent battle taking place within you. It is not a war fought with weapons or armies, but with choices. Each morning when you open your eyes, the weaker self and the stronger self both wake with you. The weaker self craves comfort, distraction, and ease. It wants to linger in bed, to delay effort, to reach for the instant gratification of food, entertainment, or idle pleasure. The stronger self, on the other hand, longs for growth. It wants to endure discomfort in exchange for progress, to choose the difficult path that leads to strength, to sacrifice today for a greater tomorrow. And every action you take tilts the balance toward one side or the other. Discipline is the weapon of the stronger self. It is the act of saying no to the immediate craving so that you can say yes to the deeper calling. But here lies the challenge. The weaker self never disappears. It is always there, whispering in your ear, offering excuses that sound reasonable. You've worked hard, you deserve to rest, or it won't matter if you skip just this once. And if you're not vigilant, you will believe it. You will convince yourself that giving in is harmless, but in reality, every time you surrender, you strengthen the weaker self's hold over your life. The battle within is subtle. You will rarely face a single, decisive moment where everything is won or lost. Instead, it is fought in the ordinary decisions of each day. Do you rise when the alarm rings, or do you let the weaker self drag you back into sleep? Do you choose the healthy meal that fuels your body, or do you let the weaker self indulge in what only satisfies temporarily? Do you push through one more hour of focused work, or do you let the weaker self lure you into endless distractions? These are the small battlegrounds, but they accumulate, and over weeks, months, years, they shape the very person you become. To force yourself to be disciplined is to recognize that you cannot negotiate with the weaker self. It is cunning, persistent, and endlessly persuasive. The moment you give it room, it grows bolder. The only way to overcome it is through firm, unwavering action. You must make decisions that hurt in the moment, but empower you afterward. You must prove, again and again, that your will is stronger than your cravings. The force you apply is not against the world. It is against the voice inside that wants to keep you small. This inner battle is the essence of human growth. Without resistance, without struggle, there is no strength. Just as a sword is forged in fire and hammered into shape, your character is forged in the conflict between your weaker self and your stronger self. The heat of temptation and the hammer of discipline mold you into something unbreakable. Every time you resist the pull of ease, you sharpen your edge. Every time you choose effort over apathy, you temper your spirit. The process is not easy, but nothing valuable ever is. And here is the truth. No one else can fight this battle for you. Others can inspire you, guide you, or challenge you. But at the end of the day, you are the one standing on the battlefield. You are the one who must choose whether to act in alignment with your higher self or to surrender to the whispers of weakness. The world cannot discipline you. You must discipline yourself. And when you finally take ownership of this truth, you will realize that the battle within is also your greatest opportunity. For if you can conquer yourself, nothing outside of you can defeat you. This battle also reveals something profound about the nature of freedom. We often imagine freedom as the ability to do whatever we want, whenever we want. But if what you want in the moment is always dictated by your weaker self, are you truly free, or are you simply enslaved by impulses? Real freedom comes when your stronger self takes command. It is when you can look temptation in the eye and say, I am not controlled by you. That kind of freedom cannot be granted by anyone else. It must be won on the battlefield within. The victories you win build upon each other. The weaker self does not vanish, but it begins to lose its grip. What once felt impossible becomes routine. The actions you once had to force yourself into become natural habits. Waking early, staying focused, choosing discipline over distraction. These no longer feel like battles, but like the rhythm of your life. This is how transformation occurs, not through one grand act of willpower, but through countless small victories that accumulate into strength. When you feel the urge to give in, remind yourself, this is the battle. This is the moment that matters. Every choice is a seed. You are either planting weakness or planting strength. And the harvest you reap tomorrow will come from the seeds you sow today. Discipline is not about perfection. You will stumble, and there will be days when the weaker self wins. But the war is not lost in a single defeat. What matters is whether you rise again, whether you refuse to let weakness become your identity. With every return to discipline, you reclaim your power. And as long as you keep choosing the stronger self, you will continue to grow into the person you are meant to become. The battle within is not a curse, but a gift. For it is through this struggle that you uncover your true strength. Without it, you would never know what you are capable of. And when you stand victorious, not because life was easy, but because you conquered yourself, you will carry a confidence that no obstacle in the world can shake. That is the true reward of forcing yourself to be disciplined. Not just the goals you achieve, but the unshakable self you become. Resistance is the great sculptor of human strength. Without it, nothing grows, nothing endures, nothing sharpens. Just as the body must struggle under weight to build muscle, the mind must strain against resistance to build discipline. And yet, most people spend their lives trying to avoid it. They look for shortcuts, for easy paths, for ways to bypass discomfort. What they don't realize is that by avoiding resistance, they also avoid growth. Life without resistance may feel safe, but it leaves you untested, fragile, and unprepared for the challenges that inevitably come. The law of resistance is simple. Whatever you push against pushes back, and in that very push, you grow stronger. Think of the person who lifts weights. The iron does not move willingly, it resists. But in that resistance, muscles tear and rebuild, growing larger and more powerful. The same is true of the spirit. Every time you push yourself to wake up earlier than your body desires, to work harder than your mind is comfortable with, to persist when your emotions beg you to stop, you are applying resistance. And just as surely as the body adapts, so too does your character. You become more resilient, more capable, more unyielding. But here's the paradox. While resistance is the very thing that makes you strong, it never feels pleasant in the moment. The body screams under the weight. The mind rebels against the effort. The emotions cry out for relief. This is why most people give in. They misinterpret discomfort as a sign that they are on the wrong path, when in truth, it is a sign they are precisely where they should be. Growth never feels like comfort. It feels like resistance. If you are not struggling, you are not strengthening. This is why forcing yourself to be disciplined is essential. Discipline is not about waiting for the easy day, because the easy day produces nothing. Discipline is about embracing resistance deliberately, knowing it is the forge in which you are shaped. When you choose to run when you don't want to study when your mind drifts, to stay committed when the novelty has worn off, You are training yourself to thrive in resistance. You are practicing the art of doing what others avoid. And that is why disciplined people stand out. Not because their path was easier, but because they learned to carry the weight everyone else drops. Imagine two lives. In one, a person avoids resistance. They choose comfort whenever possible, say yes to indulgence, and avoid struggle. At first, this life feels pleasant, even enviable. But over time, it begins to show its weakness. Their body grows weaker, their mind less sharp, their willpower fragile. When true challenges come, illness, setbacks, responsibilities, they find themselves overwhelmed because they never trained to endure. Now imagine another life, one that embraces resistance daily. This person wakes early, confronts tasks they do not enjoy, practices restraint when others indulge. Their life is not easy, but it is strong. And when challenges arrive, they do not collapse, they endure. The difference is not luck, it is resistance. There is also a beauty hidden within resistance. At first, it feels like an enemy. But when you lean into it, when you accept it as your teacher, you realize it is the most honest force in life. Resistance does not lie. It shows you your limits with precision. It tells you exactly where you are weak. And in that awareness, it offers the path to strength. If running a mile leaves you breathless, resistance is showing you your lack of endurance. If writing for an hour feels unbearable, resistance is revealing your lack of focus. To avoid these moments is to remain blind. To embrace them is to grow. The greatest mistake people make is thinking resistance will one day vanish, that discipline will eventually become effortless. But resistance is not an obstacle to be eliminated. It is a companion to be accepted. Even the strongest, most disciplined individuals still feel its weight. The difference is they no longer interpret it as a reason to stop. They see it as proof they are on the right path. To force yourself, then, is not to destroy resistance, but to walk with it daily, to carry it like an old friend who keeps you sharp. And in this lies a profound truth. The resistance you feel is not there to break you, but to build you. Without it, your potential would remain hidden untouched. With it, you discover what lies beyond your current limits. Each time you force yourself through resistance, you expand your boundaries. What once felt impossible becomes manageable. What once seemed unbearable becomes routine. And with every new level of strength, life itself opens in ways you could never have imagined. When you encounter resistance, do not shrink from it. Do not search for ways around it. Step into it with full awareness. Feel the discomfort, the strain, the fatigue, and recognize them as the very tools shaping you. Forcing yourself to be disciplined is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of creation. You are creating a stronger version of yourself, one forged in the fires of resistance. And when you finally look back, you will not remember the ease you sought, but the struggles you overcame. You will not take pride in the comforts you enjoyed, but in the resistance you conquered. That is the law of resistance. It is the silent architect of strength, and only those who embrace it will ever know what they are truly capable of. One of the greatest traps people fall into is the belief that they must wait to feel inspired before they act. They tell themselves, I'll work when I feel ready, or I'll begin when I feel motivated. But waiting on feelings is the surest way to stay stagnant. Feelings are fleeting. They change with the weather, shift with your mood, and bend under the weight of circumstance. If you tether your actions to how you feel in the moment, you will live a life of inconsistency, always starting but never finishing, always dreaming but never doing. Discipline begins the moment you separate action from feeling. It begins when you understand that doing what must be done has nothing to do with whether or not you feel like it. Think of the farmer who rises before dawn to tend to his fields. The earth does not care about his feelings. The crops will not wait for his motivation. The seasons will move forward whether he acts or not. And so he must act regardless of his moods. Life is no different. Success, growth, mastery, they do not wait for you to feel ready. They demand your effort now without condition. When you detach from feelings and anchor yourself in action, something powerful happens. You stop negotiating with yourself. No longer do you waste energy debating whether or not you should do the work. The decision has already been made. The action will happen regardless of mood. This is how habits are formed, how consistency is built, how discipline becomes second nature. You turn action into a non-negotiable, and in doing so, you free yourself from the endless trap of procrastination. Consider the athlete who trains every day. Do you think they always feel like running, lifting, or practicing? Of course not. But they know that feelings are unreliable guides. They act not because they feel like it, but because their future demands it. This is the essence of discipline, acting in alignment with your vision, not your emotions. The irony is that while action may not feel good in the moment, it eventually produces the very feelings you were waiting for. Momentum creates motivation, not the other way around. Once you begin, energy builds, and what felt impossible an hour ago becomes natural. This is why forcing yourself to act is so essential. The force is not against life, but against the inertia of your feelings. Think about those days when everything inside you resists. You are tired, unmotivated, uninspired. If you wait for the perfect mood, the day will slip away. But if you force yourself to take even one small step, you create movement. That single action becomes a spark, and from that spark, momentum grows. The key is to stop asking your feelings for permission. Stop waiting to feel courageous, confident, or ready. Begin, and those feelings will often follow. Anchoring in action requires a shift in identity. Instead of saying, I feel like doing this, you begin to say, I do this because this is who I am. The writer writes daily, not because inspiration always visits, but because they are a writer. The disciplined person trains daily, not because they always enjoy it, but because they are committed to growth. When you anchor yourself in identity, action flows naturally, independent of feelings. You no longer chase motivation, you embody discipline. Detaching from feelings does not mean ignoring them entirely. Feelings can still guide you, but they must never rule you. They are signals, not commands. You may feel resistance toward a task because it challenges you. That is precisely why you should do it. You may feel fear before a bold move. That is the very sign that it matters. Feelings can point to areas of growth, but if you allow them to dictate whether or not you act, they will always steer you toward the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance never leads to strength. This practice of anchoring in action also teaches you one of the deepest truths about discipline. It is less about doing huge things once and more about doing small things consistently. You don't need to feel ready to work for hours. You only need to take the first step. Begin with 5 minutes, and the next 5 will follow. Start with one action, and momentum carries you further. The discipline is not in conquering the entire mountain at once, but in forcing yourself to take the first step every day, no matter what your feelings whisper. The great irony is that people who live by feelings often feel worse over time. They avoid effort in the moment, but the guilt of inaction lingers. They chase comfort, but find only emptiness. On the other hand, those who anchor in action, even when it hurts, often feel better in the long run. They experience pride, clarity, and purpose. They go to bed tired but fulfilled. They wake knowing they are not controlled by emotions but by vision. This is the paradox of discipline. It demands discomfort now, but it delivers peace later. The next time your feelings tell you to wait, to rest, to delay, remember this truth. Feelings are temporary, but consequences are lasting. If you act only when you feel like it, you will live a life shaped by weakness. But if you anchor yourself in action, you will create a life shaped by strength. Discipline is nothing more than the ability to do what must be done, regardless of mood. And the moment you learn to live this way, you unlock a freedom that feelings can never give you, the freedom to live by choice, not by impulse. When people speak of healing, they often imagine the absence of wounds, the elimination of pain, or the return to a state of perfection. But healing is not about pretending that the wound never existed, nor is it about erasing the scars life has written into your story. True healing is about learning to carry your scars with dignity, wisdom, and grace. It is the ability to look at the parts of yourself that were once broken and recognize that they are now a testament to your resilience, not a reminder of your weakness. To heal is to accept, to integrate, and to move forward without being chained to the memory of what hurt you. Healing is not forgetting. It is remembering differently. Healing begins with the choice to stop resisting pain. Most suffering is prolonged not because of what happened, but because of our refusal to accept it. We replay the betrayal, the loss, or the disappointment in our minds, trying to rewrite it, trying to imagine what we could have done differently. But the past cannot be altered, only understood. Healing begins when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and instead begin asking, "What can this teach me?" That simple shift transforms pain into wisdom, wounds into lessons, and grief into a deeper form of love for life itself. It is important to understand that healing is not a linear process. There will be days when you feel whole and days when you feel fragile again, as if the old wound has been reopened. This does not mean you have failed. It simply means you are human. Just as the body takes time to mend after injury, the spirit, too, needs patience and compassion. Healing requires that you grant yourself permission to feel, to rest, to release, and to grow at your own pace. Comparison only delays your progress, for no two hearts heal in the same rhythm. One of the greatest illusions is the belief that healing means going back to who you were before the pain. But you cannot return to the old version of yourself, for that version no longer exists. You are not meant to go back. You are meant to go forward, carrying with you the lessons that pain has etched into your being. The storm has reshaped you, and healing means embracing the new landscape of your soul. You are not less because of your scars. You are more, for they have deepened your strength, broadened your compassion, and sharpened your clarity about what truly matters. Healing also involves forgiveness, but not in the way it is often misunderstood. Forgiveness is not excusing the harm done to you, nor is it about reconciling with those who broke you. Forgiveness is a form of release. It is the act of setting yourself free from the grip of bitterness and resentment. When you carry hatred in your heart, you allow the wound to stay open. Forgiveness closes the wound not by justifying what happened, but by choosing not to let it define you anymore. It is a decision to reclaim your peace, regardless of whether or not the other person ever apologizes. A vital part of healing is learning to trust life again. Pain often makes us withdraw, build walls, and protect ourselves from further harm. While this instinct is natural, it can also isolate us from the beauty that still exists. Healing invites you to reopen yourself to the possibility of joy, to trust that not every moment will bring sorrow, and to believe that life still has goodness waiting for you. This does not mean being naive or reckless with your heart, but rather choosing not to let past wounds blind you to present blessings. Healing also requires self-love. Many people speak kindly to others, but harshly to themselves. They nurture the world, yet neglect their own inner child. But healing begins when you treat yourself with the same tenderness you would give to someone you love deeply. It is about honoring your body, resting when you are tired, feeding your soul with what inspires you, and surrounding yourself with energy that uplifts rather than drains you. Healing is not found in constant struggle, but in gentle acts of self-care repeated consistently over time. The most beautiful truth about healing is that it transforms pain into purpose. The experiences you thought would break you often become the very experiences that allow you to guide others, to connect more deeply, and to offer empathy where once there might have been judgment. Your scars remind you not only of what you survived, but also of what you can now give back. They turn your story into a source of light for someone else walking through their own darkness. Healing, then, is not a destination, but a lifelong practice. It is not about waking up one day and declaring, "I am healed." Instead, it is about cultivating a relationship with yourself where you choose peace over resentment, presence over regret, and growth over stagnation. Every moment you choose to keep walking, even with scars, is healing. Every time you choose to love despite your history, you are healing. Every time you breathe deeply and accept the present moment as it is, you are healing. The truth is, healing does not make you flawless. It makes you whole. It teaches you that wholeness was never about perfection, but about integration. You are not just the light parts of yourself, nor are you just the broken parts. You are both woven together into a story of survival, resilience, and transformation. And when you finally embrace this truth, you realize that your scars are not marks of shame, but signatures of your strength, proof that you have lived, fallen, and risen again. There comes a time in every person's life when silence becomes more powerful than words, when stillness carries more weight than constant motion. This keynote speaks to the profound strength found in withdrawing from unnecessary noise and distractions and redirecting one's energy inward toward what truly matters. The world often pushes us to react instantly, to prove ourselves, to respond to every challenge with outward force. But the wise understand that the greatest victories are often born in silence, when one chooses not to waste their strength in battles that do not deserve it. By stepping back, you conserve energy and you deny your adversaries the fuel they need to thrive. Your silence confuses those who thrive on your reaction, and in that confusion, you rise stronger. Silence does not mean weakness. It is the opposite. It is an intentional restraint that shows mastery over self. When you choose not to engage with negativity, gossip, or provocation, you demonstrate power that words could never fully express. Anyone can shout back when insulted, argue when provoked, or complain when mistreated. But it takes true discipline to hold back, to let your silence speak in places where your words would have been wasted. This kind of composure builds an aura of respect around you because people quickly learn that you cannot be easily manipulated or dragged into chaos. By not giving your energy away carelessly, you preserve your peace and maintain your dignity. But silence is not just about dealing with conflict, it is also a tool of growth. When you stop talking so much and start listening, the world begins to reveal itself to you in ways you never noticed before. Silence sharpens awareness. You hear the tones behind words, the emotions behind actions, the truths hidden in pauses. You begin to understand people more deeply because you are not rushing to fill the space with your own voice. You start to see opportunities and solutions that noise once drowned out. In the stillness, your intuition grows louder. You become more aligned with yourself, more in touch with your inner strength, and more capable of making decisions that come from clarity instead of chaos. The modern world makes silence rare. Everyone is speaking, posting, reacting, and constantly seeking validation. But if you can embrace the power of silence, you immediately separate yourself from the crowd. You are no longer running the same exhausting race of noise. Instead, you are moving strategically, conserving your strength for moments that matter. Imagine a warrior who does not waste arrows on shadows, but waits patiently until the target is clear. This is the strength of silence. When you speak less, your words carry more impact. When you react less, your actions carry more weight. People listen more attentively because they know that when you finally do speak, it is intentional and meaningful. There is also a spiritual dimension to silence. In stillness, the soul heals. When you sit quietly with yourself, without distraction, you begin to face truths you once ran from. Silence teaches you who you really are when no one is watching. It teaches you to become comfortable in your own presence, to no longer fear being alone, and to no longer depend on the noise of others to define your worth. Many people avoid silence because it confronts them with their own thoughts, but this confrontation is necessary for growth. Only when you can sit with yourself in silence can you truly discover inner peace and unshakable confidence. The discipline of silence also teaches you patience. It trains you to endure discomfort without needing instant relief. Instead of reacting immediately to challenges, you wait, you observe, and you allow time to reveal what is real. This patience becomes a secret advantage, because while others burn themselves out in constant reaction, you are gathering wisdom, strength, and clarity. Then, when the right moment comes, your action is decisive and unstoppable. Silence gives birth to strategy, and strategy leads to victory. To live with the strength of silence is to walk with quiet confidence. You do not need to prove yourself to everyone. You do not need to explain your every move. You do not need to respond to every attack. Your silence becomes your shield, your weapon, and your sanctuary. And as you continue this practice, you will notice that life itself begins to flow differently. You will no longer feel drained by meaningless conflicts or distracted by petty noise. Instead, your energy will be directed toward what truly matters, your growth, your purpose, and your vision. Embrace silence not as emptiness, but as power. Use it as a tool to protect your peace, sharpen your mind, and strengthen your soul. Let others waste their energy in noise while you build yourself in stillness. In the end, it is not the loudest voice that carries the most authority. It is the one that speaks least, but moves with undeniable presence. Silence is not just the absence of words. It is the presence of power. And when you master it, you become unshakable. There comes a time in every journey when you must stop looking backward and start focusing entirely on what lies ahead. The past has its lessons, but it is not a place to dwell in endlessly. Life becomes stagnant when you keep reliving old mistakes, replaying lost opportunities, or wishing things had turned out differently. Progress requires you to shift your energy from regret to action, from sorrow to resolve, from memory to vision. The true essence of growth is learning to release what no longer serves you and to embrace the yet unseen possibilities waiting in your future. It is not easy, for the mind clings to what is familiar, even if it is painful. The moment you stop feeding the past and start nurturing the seeds of tomorrow, transformation begins to unfold. Imagine a river flowing forward. It never turns back to collect the drops it has left behind, yet it gathers strength as it moves. Life is much the same. The moments you feel stuck are often the times when you are trying to drink from waters that have already passed. Energy wasted on resentment, bitterness, or guilt could instead be invested in creating the life you desire. By turning your face toward the horizon, you invite new beginnings. Each sunrise carries an invitation to reinvent yourself, to step into a higher version of your being, to live more courageously and authentically than yesterday allowed. This is not about denying your story or pretending that pain didn't shape you. The past does matter, but it matters only as a teacher, not as a master. You cannot let it chain you to cycles of defeat. Every scar you carry is a reminder that you survived, not a sentence to remain broken. The past can inspire resilience, but only if you choose to view it as a foundation, not a cage. What is required is a shift in mindset, a conscious decision to say, I acknowledge what happened, but I will not let it define the rest of my journey. Such courage is rare, but it is also the mark of someone who refuses to let circumstances dictate their destiny. The future, on the other hand, is like clay, soft, unformed, waiting for your hands to mold it. Every action you take, every choice you make, leaves an imprint on it. Focusing on the future is not about daydreaming or wishful thinking. It is about aligning your actions with the vision you want to create. It demands discipline, clarity, and persistence. You must be willing to do today what your future self will thank you for tomorrow. The seeds of patience, discipline, and consistency that you plant now will bear fruit in seasons to come. Just as a farmer does not reap the harvest the day after sowing, you too must be willing to tend to your vision faithfully, even when results are not yet visible. There will always be voices that try to pull you backward, fear, doubt, and sometimes even people around you who cannot see beyond their own limitations. These voices will remind you of who you used to be, of the mistakes you made, of the times you failed. But you must learn to silence them with determination. Who you are becoming is more important than who you were. You cannot allow yourself to be imprisoned by the judgments of those who refuse to evolve. Growth is often a lonely road, but it is also the most liberating one. In walking it, you discover your true strength, the power to define your own narrative. The act of focusing forward also requires trust, not just in yourself, but in the unfolding of life itself. You will not always see the full picture, nor will you always know the exact path. Yet, that is where faith comes in. Faith is not blind. It is the recognition that while the future is uncertain, you have within you the ability to meet it with resilience and wisdom. When you live with such trust, fear loses its grip. The unknown becomes not a threat, but a canvas of possibilities. Sometimes focusing on the future means letting go of comfort. It means outgrowing environments, relationships, or habits that keep you tied to the same cycle. It means daring to step into discomfort, for only there can true transformation occur. It is uncomfortable to let go of familiarity, but it is far more painful to remain in stagnation. To grow, you must be willing to walk through uncertainty, for it is in the unfamiliar that new strength, wisdom, and opportunity are found. The greatest truth is this: you cannot rewrite the past, but you can design the future. Every breath you take is an invitation to begin again. Every decision you make is a brushstroke on the canvas of tomorrow. Do not waste your energy wishing the river would flow backward. Walk forward with courage and let your future be the masterpiece you create. Life is a journey of constant lessons, challenges, and transformations. Each keynote has revealed truths that often remain hidden until we stop, reflect, and confront them. From embracing the pain of growth to building resilience, from learning the strength of silence to mastering self-discipline, every step has shown that true power lies not in external validation, but in the mastery of our own minds and actions. This speech is not a collection of abstract ideas, but a roadmap, a reminder that you already hold the tools to shape your destiny. The hardships you face are not punishments, but invitations to evolve. The silence you maintain is not weakness, but wisdom. The sacrifices you make are not losses, but seeds for a greater future. And the self you are becoming is proof that struggle, when endured with courage, gives birth to greatness. You are not defined by what happens to you, but by how you rise from it. Carry these lessons forward, for they are not just teachings. They are the foundation of a stronger, wiser, and unshakable version of yourself.